is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
I want to welcome all of our Global Voice Radio listeners to the inaugural episode of Your Creative Force with Avianne. I'm Denise Joy Thompson, and I'm the CEO of Global Voice Radio. And I, along with my team, and Irene Pro, who is our creative director, would like to welcome Avianne as one of our hosts. So Avianne, I'm so excited to be able to talk with you today and do an introduction of you and your show, Your Creative Force, to the Global Voice Radio listeners, and so that they can get an idea of who you are and what you are going to bring to them through your show.
Okay, thank you, Denise, and hi, and hello to all the listeners. Yes, my name's Avianne, and if you don't know it yet, I'll just give you a friendly warning. I'm quite the character, but my show is something I've been carrying, I think, within me for a while. The message, the purpose of it, I just never had a way to really get it out there, and I feel this is a fantastic way for me to do that, because I feel each of us have a message to the world. I feel like a life, our lives, each life, an individual life represents a message, represents a mirror to the world, and has something to contribute, something positive to say, something helpful to make a difference within this world. And I feel my little mirror, so to speak, is about showing people, basically reflecting to people what they are capable of when they tap into what I refer to as their creative force. It is not something that I came up with or that I thought out. It's something I stumbled upon through years of teaching people art and how to make art. I just discovered this incredible treasure in people, that every person has a very unique creative soul, creative spirit inside of them. And that when they learn to really utilize that, to really tap into that, to really ask good questions about themselves, and to really go a little deeper into the journey with their creative selves, I've just discovered and seen and observed that that really takes people to a whole new level of achieving their purpose, of knowing who they are, of knowing what they want to be in this world. And it can apply to anything in their lives. It doesn't necessarily only apply to making art. It applies to being a parent. It applies to being a business executive. It applies to being someone who is a stay-at-home mom, or someone who's a medical professional. And all of the above are people that I have taught through the years. And it's incredible how people become enriched, inspired, and encouraged to pursue their dreams, and to even just realize that they can sit down and find out who they really are and what they really want to do with their lives. A lot of us get swept up into the daily routine. We get swept up in our daily responsibilities. And I think sometimes that works against us, because it sweeps us along in a lot of outside influences and forces and voices, which distracts us from that place we can go to inside ourselves to say, but who am I really? What is it that I really want? What do I have to say? What is my contribution? What is my purpose? And I think there's a way through tapping into our creativity to just bring ourselves back to things like those dreams we had when we were kids, those wonderful things that we used to love that we don't even do anymore because we have no time, right? So that's kind of the gist of it.
Well, and also I think to comment on what you had just said, as we grow and develop, the creativity that we had as children, sometimes we're sort of told to let go of it, that it is childish, that it's not going to help us, it's not going to be a career or help us in any way in our life, so focus on something else. But one of the things that I want to share with our listeners is you originally are from South Africa, and
Yes.
you have been in the States for approximately 11 years living in California.
Yes.
So share a little bit about your journey in regards to creating the life that you have.
Wow. That depends how far back you want to go. Okay, so I'll start with when I landed in the States. I think that's a good place to start. Now, before I came to the States, I was pretty successful in what I did. I actually had a mural and faux finish business, and I also taught art classes on college level. And I was actually considering at the time to do my master's degree in fine arts, and I was doing pretty well for myself. But then when you come to the States initially, in a nutshell, what that boils down to, what that was like for me, because I came with my ex-husband on a tech visa because he's in the tech industry. And I came here and it was like starting completely over. I was 29 years old at the time. When you come to the States, they do not consider any of your credit records. They don't consider anything you did before. It's like you're starting with a clean slate. So you come to the country, you can't open a bank account without your husband's assistance because they just don't recognize your credit record. You can't just start a business. You can't just do whatever you want because you have certain visa conditions, certain immigration conditions, certain legal considerations. And of course, coming from a country where the exchange rate is different, you also have, suddenly everything's a lot more expensive than what you are used to. And you have to adjust culturally, you have to adjust socially. Even simple things for me, like there's certain paints and supplies I use a lot in my art making, and over here they have completely different names than they had in South Africa. So I had to relearn my industry. I had to be patient. That's why in the beginning, whenever I could have a work visa, whenever I was able legally to, I did all kinds of jobs. I worked for Macy's, I worked for Target, and I used those experiences to learn about American culture, to learn about American people. And while I was doing that, I also was an assistant for another artist, just to relearn a lot of the art things. And it was quite a learning curve for me, because I suddenly realized that I had to speak different, I had to sound different, I had to understand how to deal with an American client who is very different from a South African client. And it was an adjustment, and I had to start over, and I had to start from nothing. One of the things that I am so wanting people to encourage people with is that you really do not have to have an incredible array of qualifications or an incredible amount of knowledge or an incredible amount of money to start a business. You can do it in doable steps. You can do it small. You can do it with things you already have at your disposal. And if you build from there and just take your baby steps, I think it's very doable to achieve your dreams, because that's what I did. Mm-hmm. And I did that through a lot of things that happened to me since I came here. I was divorced. A lot of things happened to me that was completely outside of my control. And so I just feel that it's possible for people to achieve their dreams, but it starts with, I think, having a strong sense of who you are and what you want and why you want things. I think your why is just as important as your how. And I think we can tend to get wrapped up in the how so much that we forget the why. And I think the tapping into your creative force, as I call it, and as I will unpack it more for my listeners, that is just a very effective, very accessible, very easy way for you to start really knowing your why. Mm-hmm. Especially when you hit tough spots. Maybe you're going through something in your family. Maybe your business suddenly experiences a little downturn. If you know your why, you're not going to freak out. You're not going to run away. You're not going to abandon your ship. You're going to know what your ship is doing, where it's heading. You're going to weather the storm, and you're going to stay on course. But knowing your why and knowing from the inside out what you are busy building I think that becomes very important. And that's what I try to tap into. And it's just something I've always naturally done.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's where I'm from, because where I'm from, it's really tough to make it. You have to really go hard after your dreams if you want to achieve it. So I think maybe I've just always had to do that. And so the necessity of it kind of threw me into the deep end, and I just had to swim. And in the process, I just learned these things that I think can be very valuable for other people.
Mm-hmm. So share about, what did you do after you learned how to navigate within the American culture? You had worked for another artist. You started to learn the art culture per se in the United States. So what did you do then? Once you had enough information, you were able to get a work visa, and you were able to sort of go out on your own. Talk about then creating the business that you have now.
Yes, in 2009, we were very fortunate. We won the green card lottery. And that was the coolest thing that ever happened to me here, is winning the green card lottery. And the minute I had my green card, I started building my business. I was kind of waiting for that so that I know I had more permanence. This is something that's very difficult, especially for immigrants in the beginning, is that you do not have a sense of permanence. So it's hard to invest time and effort and money into something if you don't know if you're going to have to leave the country or go somewhere. So the minute I had my green card, I knew I had a more of a sense of a permanence. And what I did then is I literally started, because I didn't know anything about how to start a business in the States just from scratch. But I very quickly found out it's actually pretty easy. So this is something I did, and this is something I would tell anyone to do. I started by going to my local chamber of commerce. So I made an appointment with the lady there, and I went to them and I said to them, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to start an art-based business. How do I get a business license? What are the laws and the rules in the county and in the city about doing it from the home? Because some places have different rules about how you can go about that. How do I obtain a business location? And from there, I started connecting. I started entering my work in local art shows. I started entering my work in local art contests. And I literally started my business in a 1-bedroom, super tiny apartment, painting. I didn't even have room to put up an easel. I had to lean my paintings against the couch and put newspaper all over the floor and all over the couch. And I sat on the floor and painted. That's how I started. That's where I started. And I just did, there's a few things I did. I tried to keep overheads low. I think overheads can kill a small business very quickly because it's very expensive. And I do live in an area that it is extremely, your listeners' mouths will hang open if I tell them what space costs here to rent, to do a business. And I just started small. That's what I could do. That's how I could do it. And everyone around me thought I was completely insane. I just want you to know that. They're like, why are you doing this? Your husband's making good money. You don't need to do this. Why are you putting yourself through all of this? And I had to stick to who I was. I have a very strong sense of who I am, and I had to make art, and I wanted to turn it into a business. I have always had this thing that I wanted to prove people wrong. So I want to prove to them that whatever your dream is, you can do it. And I did it. And the first show I entered, I got an award for my work, and people started noticing me, and it kind of snowballed from there. I got requests to paint commissions. And one of the skills that I have that enables me to get a lot of work as an artist and to be commissioned as an artist is I'm very multi-skilled. I have taken many, many years. I've done this for about 20 years now. I do a lot of things in obscurity. And one of the things I do in obscurity is I build skills. I will battle and struggle and fight and cry until I can paint something. And I think there's a tenacity to that. And it doesn't only apply to the art industry. The things I'm telling you, I feel apply to a broader range of things. It's that thing of having tenacity and having perseverance and pushing through your fears. It is extremely frightening in the beginning, especially when you're young, especially if you're just starting out. Now I'm kind of over it. But it is very frightening in the beginning to run with your dream, to put it out there for people to view, to see, to criticize, to rip apart. And you have no control over how people are going to react. And people can think you're completely crazy for what you're doing, or they can think you are incredible. And that's the other little thing I just quickly want to mention, which I also go into more depth with my show. You can never live by the criticism or the applause of people, because people change.
Right.
Today they may think the thing you created or the thing you're doing is incredible, it's the most amazing thing they've ever seen, and tomorrow they dislike your Facebook page, they go like the Facebook page of your competition, and then they're a groupie for your competition. So if you live by that, you're going to really get hurt. You're really going to put your eggs in the wrong basket, so to speak. So that's why I feel like something about this creative force I keep speaking about is that it's an inside out thing. Mm-hmm. It works kind of like happiness. You can't get it from outside. You can't get it from the applause of people. You cannot get it even from reaching milestones and successes. It has to always come from the inside. Right. Otherwise, if outside things start influencing that too much, it can really derail you. It can discourage you, or it can set you up to be discouraged if you become so confident and you're not like seeing your blind spots so good anymore. So that's kind of, I hope that answers your question.
Well, and the point that you're making, if you become confident because of people's perceptions of you, instead of being confident in your perception of yourself.
Yes.
And so we need that as a strong foundation first. So share a little bit about, you mentioned going to your first art show and winning an award. Talk about how you were chosen to go on HGTV and the Food Network.
I don't know exactly how they found me. I think they Googled me. They Googled artists who were doing murals. And at that time, in the beginning of my business, I did a lot of mural work. I didn't do as much fine art commissions as I did murals. And I was starting to get known for that. Since then, I moved away from that. It's very physical work, and I wanted to focus more on my fine arts. But at the time, I was known for my murals, and I was on third-party websites being marketed as a muralist, and I think that's how they found me. And they started out with hundreds of artists that they screened to do this, and it was very interesting because I always felt, because in the end, only 3 were picked. Only 3 people were picked for this thing, for doing this initial thing. Out of hundreds for this specific episode and thing, was only 3 people initially that were picked, of which I was one of the 3. And I feel like what got me to the end of that was my skill. When they gave me, because they gave us certain concepts, certain things to test us before they brought us into this reality show. Which, by the way, ended up not panning out. They only broadcast the first season because I don't think the show itself ended up really being super, super successful. But for me, it was a great stepping stone.
Yes.
And it was a strange thing, which is something I'll quickly mention. It was Food Network, and what they wanted me to do was paint with edible paint. Never did it before in my life. So I had to research. Suddenly I had to research cake decorations and the weirdest things I've never even been involved in. So one of the things I quickly want to mention when I'm saying that is, I feel like a lot of time when you want to go towards your destiny, towards your potential, live from your creative force, you're going to have to realize that you will need to be open to things that may be foreign to you, or maybe strange to you, or may not be your comfort zone. I really cannot bake and decorate cakes. I cannot do that. I will not attempt to do that ever. It's not what I can do. But I started experimenting with these things, and I came up, because I was experimenting with it, I came up with really interesting and cool ways to use these paints and these edible things. And I think they liked that. And that I was able to use it and use it skillfully, I think was what impressed them initially, and then ended up impressing them throughout. And consistency. And I think that's why they like me, and while they keep choosing me every time they were sifting through finalists, they kept on choosing me. And I think it was because I could take what they gave me, and I could experiment and work with it, come up with a creative solution, and then bring the solution back to them. And that is something, like, I know I knew some of the other artists who were with me, and I was on conference calls with them, and then the other artists would go, I hate this paint. It's the most horrible paint I have ever worked with. And then I'm thinking to myself, I know, right? I feel the same. But instead of saying that, I would say, no, it's fine. I will find a way to do it, right? So attitude. I think attitude, and then being consistent and being a problem solver, kind of getting out of our box. Sometimes if we're in a certain industry, we can start having tunnel vision and think that our industry is the be all and end all of everything, right? It's not true. If you really think about it, right. Your industry is just one of thousands of things that is going on out there. So we have to be careful, I think, in our industry to start developing almost what I could call a diva mentality, where you think your industry is the best and your way is the only way, and anything that doesn't quite fit into that picture you have doesn't quite work. Right. No, it's a little broader than that. So I think it's my attitude was good, and my ability to solve the problems, because it was very difficult to work with that stuff. And then just the fact that I could skillfully take it and produce something back. Right. I think that is what made me last through all the sifting processes, and in the end had me be on that show. And I had a blast on the show. I was laughing so much. I think they once told me on the show to act like I was fighting with someone, because they wanted me to do something that they could like use on the show to create drama. But I couldn't even do that, because I'm laughing. I'm like, I'm having fun. Like, I don't know how to pick a fight. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I was just fainting. And it was really cool. It was a great experience. Very stressful environment. I mean, you have cameras and lights shining in your face, and you have people in your personal space literally with a camera right here on your shoulder while you're trying to paint. Yeah. So it's being able to also step out of your comfort zone, and sometimes being comfortable in situations that is not really comfortable for you. It wasn't comfortable for me. Right. I'm not used to having tons of people and lights and actions and cameras and everything in my face while I'm working. But I was able to just tap into that creative force I have, just completely go into myself and do it and execute it really well. And it's a mental thing. It's a mental strength. It's being emotionally and mentally fit, I think. It's a big part of that, which all of what I'm talking about, I will go into more detail in my show.
Right. Well, and you've given several tips in regards to how do we move forward in life towards our dreams. And you mentioned attitude, creativity, tenacity, consistency, problem solving. I mean, all of those things are necessary for us to continue to move towards what we're saying we truly want.
Yes.
So now talk about, how did you decide to create your academy? Because that's part of your business, is you have a art academy in 2 different locations within the U.S. So talk about the creation of the academies.
That was really an interesting thing in itself, because when I was in South Africa, I used to teach college students. I taught fashion design, interior design, graphic design, and fine art students drawing and philosophy and history and a lot of different kinds of subjects. And then when I came here, of course, that was not in the cards for me right away. But then I was friends with someone who told me, listen, you should start teaching kids. You're really creative. You should start teaching kids. Because I was looking at the time just for ways to build up money, build up funds to do some things. She's like, oh, this would be a really easy thing for you to do. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I have no experience working with children. At the time, I haven't even had kids myself. And I'm like, I don't really know how this is going to work. I'm not really a kids person. But then I was like, okay, well, what do I have to lose? I could try it. So I said to her, okay, we can try it. Let's try 4 lessons, see how it goes. If it works, then we can go on. If it doesn't work, then we just call it quits, and no hard feelings, no loss, right? So I did that. I started that in my home at the time. At the time when I started it, my daughter was a baby. And I started it, and I was very surprised because I was not a child educator. I had no experience in teaching children. So what I did was I applied the exact same teaching methods and content that I applied to college students. The only thing I did different was I made it into simpler language for the children so that they could understand it and relate to it. And I very quickly found out that if you put that material in front of a 6-year-old and you explain it to them in a good way, they can do it. And I was quite fascinated by that because I didn't know that was possible. I didn't think it was going to work, to be honest. So from there, I started growing. People started hearing about me. And then they saw the results because I was getting results. I mean, I had 6 to 8-year-olds painting human anatomy. I had kids do stuff that college students sometimes struggle with. And everyone's like, wow, how do you teach this? Because I'm like, I don't know. I just explain it to them. And then they can just do it. And kids don't have the fear. You see that adults have. Adults, we have been shamed or beaten down over the years into not believing in ourselves and thinking we can't do these things and thinking things are hard. But kids tend to not have that. So they don't have all these blocks and mind blocks and stuff. So I was working with these kids and they're like, I bet if I can teach it to kids like this, I bet I can teach it to teenagers and I bet I can teach it to adults. And so from there, I just started teaching adults and kids. And then I stumbled upon this but people all have this creative thing inside of them that just can do these incredible things if someone just opens it up to them. And that's how I started realizing, there's more to this. I need to formalize this. I need to start an academy around this. Because I teach very differently from most other art teachers. I don't just teach my students to copy what I do. I teach them to use their own creative force and to work from there. And then I teach them the skills, of course. And so that's how it started. And now it's booming. It is expanding. And this was in 2012. So it's been about 5 years. So actually, for just having done this for 5 years, starting in my home and actually only formally doing it for the last 4 years, it's been pretty amazing, pretty amazing journey. And it was totally this thing I stumbled upon and then I just went with it. I was like, okay, something bigger than myself is going on here and I would be really a fool if I don't go with it. So I just went with it. And the idea initially to just build some funds and just kind of do it for a while, completely different. It changed into now I'm really doing it for real. And I'm actually the dean of my own art academy, which is hysterically funny to me because I don't even have a master's degree in fine art. And I'm like, well, why not? I can change the rules. Right? And if people don't, and they're like, yeah, but you can't, I'm like, I'm an artist. And then they forgive me and then they let me change the rules, which is fantastic.
I'm a creative. I don't even have rules. So
so I basically just do whatever I want from within my creative source. And even if it is completely not at all what the rules are, I just do it. I mean, I do it all very ethically and I do it all completely legally and ethically. It's very important to do everything by the book in your business because you really don't want to create issues for yourself that you don't want to deal with. So you have to really know the law and you really have to be ethical and you really do not want to do things that are not okay to do. But besides that, you really can break a lot of the rules in any industry. And maybe that's something that really was helpful to me, specifically being in California and Silicon Valley. I am surrounded by people in the tech industry who break the rules. So I find them very inspiring for me. It's like, okay, well, they're doing it in the tech industry. Why can't I do it in the art industry, right?
And I think,
So,
and I understand completely what you're saying when you're talking about the rules, right? We're sort of putting that in quotes because
yes.
we've seen not remaining with the status quo. Because
Yes.
right, if we had done that in art, in the tech world, in manufacturing, in development, we would still, be in the dark ages. So
yes.
people create things and we have things in our life because somebody doesn't accept the rule that the world is flat.
Yes.
That
exactly.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's like, okay, so because you've been around for a very long time and maybe you own like 5 art galleries in the city, that's wonderful for you and I'm glad you're successful, but that does not make you the king of the art world who can tell me exactly how to run my business and what my place in the hierarchy of the art world should be, because I will determine that for myself. You see, it's the self-determination. It's that thing of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I completely believe in that. And there's great freedom in that. You do not have to play by the rules of the guy who owns the 5 businesses in your industry, in your city. You can create a new aspect of that, a new way of doing it. You don't have to just see, I don't know why we sometimes do this, but it's a thing we all do. We grow up or we are surrounded in our careers within a certain context. And because that's how things work, we kind of start mentally going along with it, thinking that is how things work. And then we stick to that pattern and we try and copy that pattern instead of going like, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's like 10 different ways to do this thing. Maybe I can try 9 different ways of those 10 different ways and see what works. And I think that is something that I really want to see people do. If I can see something in humanity, it's like, really, you do not have to be so stuck in just that pattern, this pattern, this mold, this box, that it's just because you don't know more. But you can know more and you can try more. And it's really, people get scared to do that because they worry about what other people are going to say. They worry about not having a ton of money. They worry about failing. Okay. And here's the thing though, okay, which is a scary thought for people, but it's true. You're going to fail anyway. I try probably 20 different things and then I'm really happy if 2 of them work. But for the 2 of them to work, I have to try 20. Mm-hmm. Because if I only tried 2 things and those were coincidentally 2 things that didn't work, then I'm going to feel horrible. So I try many things and I see what sticks, and not everything sticks and I make mistakes. But I learn and I build. And the faster you learn to just get over it and get on with it, the faster you get to that thing of, wow, I'm really living from this force inside of me. I'm just going to go for it.
Right. And, I think also, as long as we're trying, as long as we're taking the next step, as long as we're learning, is it a true failure? Like if you had stopped.
Yes. I think like that too.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, and I try to share this with others, and now I have a kindred spirit in you and some other of my friends. If we don't give up, there's not a failure. It's when we throw up our hands, we sit on the side of the road, and we say we can't do anything. That is when that's a failure. But you can have that few moments, and then you pick yourself up, and then you continue on, and you're continuing working towards success. And every step forward is a level of success.
Yes. And I can tell you, just knowing people in this area who work in the tech industry and who start businesses in the tech industry and who are entrepreneurs in the tech industry specifically, these people sometimes start companies, start technology-based companies, and you are talking millions, sometimes even hundreds of millions of dollars from investors. I mean, think of the pressure of that. Okay, think of the pressure of having to succeed at something while people are pouring millions of dollars into you. That's high stakes, that's high pressure. And you know what? Sometimes they fail. Sometimes they fail 5, 6, 7 times with so much money from other people, totally just falling flat. And they get up and they do it again, and they get up and they do it again. And maybe at the 8th or 9th try, they build a Microsoft, or they build an Apple, or they build, you know what I'm saying? And that's what it takes. It's like, I don't think I could handle that level of pressure or stress. But when you look at people and you say to yourself, well, that is what people are capable of, when they just don't allow the fear, you know, where they just don't allow that negativity. They would literally try that level of pressured success over and over and over and over again until it works, no matter the failure, no matter the stakes, no matter what goes wrong or what is the risk. And to me, that's pretty profound. Now, I don't think I could do it on that level. My stress factor would be way too high. But I think there's something to be learned from that. It's just like, okay, if someone can do that with that much money on that level, then surely I can do it with not having that even nearly that much to lose if I don't get it right. And then also, I think people misunderstand goals and business plans. Yes, you have to have goals. Yes, you have to have a game plan. You can't have no plan. But you also have to be open to maybe opportunities come your way, right? I think sometimes we can be rigid and we can think, oh, this is not a good opportunity, like the radio show, right? I mean, I'm not in broadcasting, never been involved in broadcasting besides painting with my mouth shut on a television, right? I've never really been involved in it, but I saw your opportunity came, and I thought to myself, well, this is a great way to get my message out. This is a great way for me to find another avenue to start increasing my own voice, right? And so I'm like, okay, even though this is not at all within the scope of what I do on a regular basis, and even though I speak with an accent and I really worry if I'm going to make sense to anyone, I'm just going to try it because it's not, I can't really lose, right? What's the worst that can happen? I have all these amazing shows that I can turn into a course or turn into something else. And the best that can happen is I can gain a much larger following, which can help me totally expand all the other things I love and do. So for me, it was like, okay, there's not really a loss for me. Right. And what if I'm a horrible host? Then so what? Then I know. Then I know and I've learned, but I don't think I'll be. I'm just saying, I think we need to get over ourselves. Does that make sense? Like we can so get trapped in overthinking and over worrying and thinking we're not good at stuff that we don't even try things. And how are you going to know if you don't even try? Right?
Also, in our own mind, we can create the fact that we can't do something. And we could have that ability. We have the capability, but we've talked ourselves out of it. And
oh, yes.
and then, that's not, no one else, we are our own worst enemy.
Yes. Yes.
So talk a little bit. So besides the fact that you do fine art commissions, besides the fact that you are the dean of your academy with 2 locations, you also are the mother to a daughter, and you're also a wife. So talk about, how do you balance working in your business, being a wife, being a mother, being active in your community. So how do you balance all of those roles?
That's very interesting. And I would start by saying that one thing I do not do is I do not involve myself in everything. Okay, just being realistic. We are human. You have limits. You cannot possibly participate in every community project, in every community organization. You have to really pick the things that matter to you. You can pick 1 thing or 2 things that you really feel strong about. And there are ways to go about it. For instance, I really do not generally have the time to volunteer at my daughter's school. because the times they want me to volunteer are times when I have to teach classes or do other things. But I want to contribute to her school. So what I do is I approach the teachers and I say, listen, I can't do this because the schedule doesn't work, but I can go into my studio and I can help you create things for your classroom. And I can come alongside you and help you in other ways. So I think it's finding things that kind of fit around what you're already good at. Maybe you're someone who's really super great at admin. So maybe there's a business down the street that really struggles doing their admin, and maybe 1 hour or 2 hours a week, you can just kind of help them a little bit, right? There's ways to do things that you can actually do. It's not going to take an enormous amount of time, not going to take an enormous amount of effort. That's one thing. And the other thing, I don't involve myself in things that has to do with a lot of drama. I try and stay away from that. And then I focus on things, like I mentioned, with the school, where I can really do help people in a good way. And then with my daughter, she basically grows up in an art studio. So she thinks that is incredible. And I'm training her, and she tells her teacher at school, I'm going to mommy's business. I'm learning the business. So she's 6, by the way, and she already thinks of herself as an entrepreneur. So I try and, in my interactions with my daughter, carry that mindset over to her, that whatever you are great at, whatever you find, you don't have to be an artist like me, but whatever you find yourself excelling at, you can really turn it into a business. You can turn it into something entrepreneurial. You can turn it into something more than just doing a 9-to-5 job, if that's what you want to do. So I just give her this, I use what I do every day as a way to train my daughter and inspire my daughter and show her by example. That's the one thing. And then I think it's really important, if you have a partner or a husband or whoever significant others are in your life, I think it's important to really communicate with them and to have someone that understands. My husband knows I work strange hours. He knows that I'm not going to be typically the mom who has the dinner ready at 6:30 in the evening. In fact, he cooks. And he knows I'm not someone who's always going to be the perfect cookie cutter wife who has the house perfectly clean and the laundry perfectly done. Everything. He knows that, he understands that, and doesn't bother him. So I think knowing what your values are and knowing that the person that is in your life, the partner, your family, can flow with that. And of course, there are times when I do push everything else I do aside and I just spend time with my daughter, and I just spend time with my husband. But I think it's also like, when you are doing something, even if you're only doing it for an hour or two, to really be engaged and present with that.
Yes.
So that when you've accomplished it, you can then turn your attention to something else and really be present with that. I think the multitasking thing can sometimes work against us and cause us to not be really present with things that we're busy with. So
Correct. Well, and the other key comment that you made is communication, right? Communicating
yes,
with your partner, significant other, and with your children, so that they understand what you're doing. And
yes,
sometimes as women, we get caught up in that we have to do everything equally.
yes,
We have to run the home. We have to be, 50% the mother, 50% the homemaker, 50% the business owner. Well, that's more than 100%. So when we talk about breaking rules, we can break the rule of what does it mean to be successful, to be a wife, to be a spouse, to be a mother, and we don't have to do it all. But we also have to communicate of what we can handle, what we can't, and then if we need to find someone to come in and clean the house or help with the laundry, do whatever, then somehow we need to figure out where can we get that extra money to do that, so that we as women and our partner, spouse, are not overwhelmed with day-to-day stuff that gets in the way of us living our why, living our purpose, and we want to be have time to do fun things.
Yes, you have to. You are a human being. And I think getting enough sleep is really important. I cannot function if I don't get 8 hours a night. I know there are people running around bragging about the fact that they can last on 4 hours to 6 hours of sleep a night. I am not one of those people. I would be 100% miserable and 100% completely useless if I don't get 8 hours of sleep every night. So for me, sleeping, resting, and I am someone who has a propensity for anxiety because I'm such an overthinker and I'm so obsessive about certain things that I really want just so. So for me, because I know that about myself, if I feel that anxiety come on, I have to deliberately counteract it immediately, because if I don't stop it short, it will completely floor me. So it comes down to really knowing yourself and knowing your tolerances and knowing your triggers, right? And to delegate, right? Right now, I am actually contracting a second teacher in one of my locations to start taking over some tasks, because I'm finding myself more and more building another location. And I can't be in two places at the exact same time. That's just not possible humanly. So I have to start getting the right people into my business, build the right team. And if you go to my website, you'll see my team. I have a fantastic team. And the amazing thing about my team is that some of the people on my team totally outqualify me on paper. Mm-hmm. They have expertise and qualifications and experience in things that I either know nothing about or that I haven't done that long. And so there's things I don't know. And I think picking people who have strengths in areas you do not have strengths in. Like, I cannot do my own accounting and my own taxes, which sounds ridiculous to a lot of people, but I can't. My brain does not work that way. So I have a fantastic person who does that for me, because then I can apply my amazing brain to doing these incredible creative business building things that I am really great at doing. Mm-hmm. But I don't have to then put mental energy into something that would take me forever to do and would frustrate the living daylights out of me. I can have someone else take care of
it. Right, and that's another great recommendation of knowing our skills, what we should focus on in our life and building a business, and delegate to others what they're an expert in. Well,
yes.
I am so excited that you have joined Global Voice Radio and that your show, Your Creative Force, will air on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. And I feel very blessed and thankful for you joining us and bringing your voice, your message. And I think that you will help a lot of individuals to connect to what is inside of them, and they possibly haven't allowed themselves to let it out. So thank you very much for joining Global Voice Radio. I want to thank our listeners for joining us. And also, if you want to connect with Avianne, you can get a hold of her through her website, takeartclasses.com. So join us again for Global Voice Radio shows. We'll see you again every week.
Thank you.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Tune in next time as we explore your creative force. Thank you for listening.